opportunity to make good choices. That's the theory, if you will, behind independent transportation network, that people will make good choices if they have good options, and that it's pretty much impossible for them to make good choices without good options. What Trooper Cropper did is a very different kind of intervention, a much more dramatic form of the same thing. We hear in the press all the time about extraordinary older driver accidents. In this case, a wrong-way older driver was reported on the streets. I don't know if he was on the Interstate yet or headed for the Interstate. And Trooper Cropper got the call and actually drove to where the person was and headed him off and literally put himself and his cruiser in the way of the wrong-way driver. And in so doing, probably saved the lives of some other people who were just coming the way, and who knows how many people would have caught. So it's, for me, it's not the metaphor, it's the physical embodiment of the most extreme life-saving measure for older drivers that I've ever heard, and I've been paying attention now for 20 years. So, I think, say one other thing and then three other things. Been in law enforcement for 12 years, and before that, he was a teacher for 5 years, and he's not from Maine. He's from Long Island, New York. So that was kind of a big surprise. What was extraordinary for me, and I hope he'll explain it to you when he speaks, when we spoke over coffee, when someone does something like that, it seems like a split second. You make a decision, you act, you do it. In fact, he's in the tactical squad of the state police. He's like a SWAT team guy. And he's carefully trained to react well in emergencies. And he can describe that for you. And maybe this sounds crazy, but it seemed to me that, of course, I relate everything in the world to ITN. Probably when I have grandchildren, I'll relate them to ITN. But it seemed to me that a lot of what we do is about trying to think ahead and trying to plan and trying to have an intervention that saves lives and keeps people safe. What he did is, in some ways, the most dramatic version, it seemed to me. So, anyway, I'll stop talking and let him talking and talk. Doug?
Good morning. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for having me here. I'm humbled. I'm honored. This is talking to this gentleman. This is the first time I've ever had to talk to a specialized group like this that is really dealing with the elderly drivers. Usually I'm talking to new recruits, new troopers, their parents, their grandparents. I do public speaking for graduations, and I also teach at the academy on high-risk stops, which are the felony stops when you're watching CNN and you're seeing the view from the helicopter and you're seeing all the cops on the highway and they're drawing down on the perp, and that's what I teach. Very high-risk maneuvers, so that's what I'm used to doing. This is different, this is new, I'm excited, I'm glad to be here. Please, if anyone has any questions at any time, please step right in, just call me Doug, you don't have to call me Trooper. Yeah, well, I'm just going to set it up real quick. The incident happened on I-295, which is right out here in Portland, right before Tukey's Bridge. And Tukey's Bridge is a very odd road, or piece of the road in Portland. It's got a lot of blind spots. Whether you're coming around bends or coming over the bridge, and all of a sudden you're bending off to the right. I've been driving it for 10 years now, and I didn't realize there were that many blind spots until after this whole thing happened. And for a wrong-way driver becoming northbound to southbound lane or vice versa, it scared me a lot after that. July 29th was right before July 4th weekend. Probably one of the busiest traffic weekends we have. Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock, and I'm the only one out there for 30 miles of the busiest highway in the state of Maine. My partner had taken the night off. Actually, we had the whole weekend off head, so that was my last night working, that 29th. And we had another trooper who was coming up from York County, which is the southernmost barracks, and he was over a half hour away when this all went down. Luckily, we don't have any borders when it comes to the troops, so we had 3 troopers from the Turnpike come over and assist me, and one of my best friends came up from South Portland PD once he heard there was an accident involving a trooper. I'm like, yep, it was me, and all of a sudden it went click. And all of a sudden he came racing up the highway, and if you see the pictures later, the press or whatever, the South Portland Cruiser is his. He just left without permission and just came up to make sure I was all right. I had stopped a box truck, small delivery truck, for speeding. He was doing 69 miles an hour in a 50-mile-an-hour zone. Pulled him over at exit 6, which is Forest Ave. And with these box trucks, you're either certified or you're not to handle them. I could write him a speeding ticket, any trooper could do that, but after that you start looking at his logbook, his paperwork, what's he carrying for shipping, bill of lading, and all this other stuff. And you have to go into a program and enter all this things, because it's all federal, and it goes off to the feds right afterwards. And anyone who's trained in these commercial vehicles, as soon as you send it off, a trooper in Oregon can read it, what you did, in case he or she has gets to stop them and wants to see what happened on their last stop with this or last dealing with this person. So it's very technical, the book's about that thick, and my sergeant was doing it on a full-time basis for many years. And I, of course, had issues and questions about this stop I had, so I'm on the phone with him. And I literally hang up the phone with him, and all of a sudden the barracks calls me. 135, Gray 135. Go ahead, Gray. You've got a wrong-way driver, northbound to southbound lane, exit 5. Silver car. Wasn't sure the make. Yep, 10-4. Hang up the microphone. I look to my left, and all of a sudden I see an oil tanker dart right in front of me, slowing down. Went from the left lane into the right lane and slowed. And all of a sudden I see this little silver car going in the passing lane by me. I jump out of the car. I yell, I wave, trying to get him to stop. He keeps going. I continue to look behind me, and cars are just going right off into the right. They're not going into the median. They're all going off to the right. They're just bailing out. They see this car coming. He's doing probably about 40 to 45 miles an hour, and he's not stopping. I jump back in my car, and as Catherine said to you, I have to do some quick thinking. I've got 2 options. Number 1, I get in my car. I'm getting in my car no matter what. I'm not going anywhere except after this gentleman. It depends on which way I'm going to go. Do I get in my car, back up, turn around, and follow him, and go head on with the traffic as well, and try and take him out, which would be called the pit maneuver, which we're not officially trained in, but you see on TV all the time, where a cruiser will come up behind a vehicle and tap it on its side and spin it out to get it to stop. And when you spin a car out, the car is supposed to shut down. Right? So I take on the liability of A, doing that, doing it improperly, and possibly hurting someone, or B, I go head on with someone and cause an even more damage, and he continues to go on. So, with a matter of split seconds, I'm thinking, I go, that's not what I'm doing. I'm going to go after him. I'm putting all this on him. He's the one who's doing the wrong. I don't know who he is, how old he is, what his problems is he drunk, is he off his meds? I just know I have to do what I think is safe for everyone else and myself. So I back up, and that's when I'll start to tape. I back up, I'm right at the exit. Northbound to go after the gentleman are closed. And there's equipment on those ramps. And people have asked, well, why don't you go through the barricade? I don't know whose personal vehicles are parked up there as construction. What equipment's up there? I could have ran into that and completely taken myself out of the game. So, let's see. This is the ramp. This is Forest Ave going inbound towards Portland. As you can see on these construction barrels, this is the first ramp. That's closed right there. There's also one on the left-hand side. See that white thing on the left? That's another barricade. This is Marginal Way. I take a left-hand turn here on the Marginal Way. This is the only way I'm going to get to exit 7 to intercept the gentleman. This tall building here is that the PHS building? No, it's not. Is that? Nah, it's a little further down. The next one. Next one's going to be DHS. You're going to see a line of traffic that I have to pass on the wrong side of the road.
Do you have your lights on?
Lights and sirens are going. Yeah. I did not know that this road construction was there, and that here starts a line of traffic. Usually, we are right behind the people trying to get them to go over to the right. I didn't have time for that. I had to stay in the left-hand lane in the wrong traffic to get to this point. I'm getting back on exit 7 northbound in the correct direction of travel. I'm punching it right here because that one car slowed me down. At this point, you really can't see in the video, but he is out in front of me, right there on the left-hand side. At that point, I pick up my radio and I tell the barracks where I'm going to ram him. I beat him to this crossover, come in pretty hot, stick my cruiser up in front of him.
Do you have a picture?
What's that?
I can pass my camera. I've got pictures of them on my phone. I'll show you what the damage was.
How fast were you? So where did it hit your car?
Did he get hurt?
The picture will show you. He literally ripped the whole front end off my car.
Wow. Did he have a seatbelt on?
He did.
So he wasn't hurt?
He did. His name was Kenneth Gill. He was from Scarborough. He was 88 years old. When we hit, I got out of the car, he got out of the car, I go, back in your car. Sit down. Sit down. Yeah. My concern was for his injuries. I'd rather have him sitting in the car than walking around or leaning up against my car. I put him back in his car. I'm like, are you okay? He said yes. I'm like, where are you going? It's like, I'm going to pay my water bill in Waterville. I'm like, hey, did you know that you were going the wrong way? Yes. Did you see the exits to get off? What exits? Did you think about stopping? No answer. I'm like, stay here. Luckily, a volunteer firefighter in his pickup truck showed up just out of the blue and said, check him out, please. I gotta go back to my radio. Tell my supervisor, because you can hear the sirens coming already. I mean, everyone's coming, because before I get out, you pick up your radio, you go 1050. 1050 means I've been involved in a cruiser accident, a cruiser crash. And I told him I was okay, but sent rescue anyway, just to check out the man, 88 years old. I don't know what prior history he has, but they're going to check him out in instances. My goal was to ram his car. I had no idea that I was actually going to beat him to that crossover. I knew the crossover was there, and if I didn't beat him to that crossover, either ram him or cut him off, we were looking at serious bodily injury, if not deaths.
Was he alone in the car?
He was. Try to find those pictures, I'll just pass my phone around for you.
What did you since then find out about him? Was there dementia? Was there, what did his family say about this incident?
My sergeant went back later and talked to him. He seemed pretty coherent, but we're not specialists in this. If you know how to use an iPhone, you just can swipe it, and then you can see the scene.
Is he still driving?
No. Well, we don't know. His license was revoked. Here in Maine, in instances like this, it's not the first time I've had to deal with a wrong-way driver, but it is the first time I've ever had to hit someone. We do what's called an adverse driving report. Basically, you write up a synopsis of what happened and what you recommend. I wrote up, my sergeant wrote up, but I never read his. I obviously read mine, and at the end, I recommended that Mr. Gill go through a medical evaluation, go through an eye exam, whatever it is that the Secretary of State does. And yeah, it's not much. They pretty much went on our recommendation and pull his license. Mr. Gill was aware of what he did, and that night he told my sergeant he was going to be handing his license in.
He signed up, right?
This ITN really hits home for me, talking to Catherine for the hour and a half we were there. We were just going to have coffee, and then all of a sudden it got all personal and stuff. It was great. I might not look it. I've got a baby face. I'm 41 years old. My mom's 82, and my dad's 86. Moving here from Long Island, New York, has been a culture shock for them. They moved here because they are getting old. They do need my help. My dad doesn't drive anymore. My mom does all the driving. And my dad got out of the hospital about 2 weeks ago, and they told me he was going to be homebound for a while. And my mom, of course, freaked out. She's got a lot of kick in her step still. She's very wanted to be getting out and doing what she wants to do and not be restrained. She felt restrained by this. So in a way, I really got worried for her, because in a way I'm thinking, this is how the elderly feel. They know that they shouldn't be out there, but we're restraining them and telling them they can't go out. So no one knows if Mr. Gill is actually driving anymore. He could be. He's no different than the drunk driver who's had his license suspended, or the habitual offender, or the person who doesn't pay his child support. They all can still get behind the wheel. You can't take their property from them. You can't take their keys. They're still going to get behind the wheel of a car. And it's scary. And we're lucky here in Portland, in the greater Portland area, that we do have mass transportation. But you go up to Bangor, you go up to Madawaska, or out to the Forks, and you have elderly people, and they don't have that option. I mean, you can spit and you'll hit 10 taxis in New York City. Around here too. It's not an option outside. And I think it's great what you folks are doing. Again, from talking to Catherine, she's got an awesome plan here set up. She's already spoken to my lieutenant colonel. And can you talk to Mr. O'Donnell?
Yeah, can I just say something about that? So when Doug and I had coffee, one of the things I asked him was, as a public safety officer, what kind of training do you receive in identifying impaired older drivers? And how do you know what to do? So, zero. So I contacted folks I knew in Washington at National Highway Traffic Safety, because I knew there was a curriculum that had been developed for police academies. And it turns out that it's going to be re-released in an edited version and available online. And so Doug gave me the name of his lieutenant colonel. And Mr. Rogers, the name of runs it.
He's in charge. There's two academies. There's one major one. That's the Maine Criminal Justice Academy. That's basically where any local law enforcement, deputies, Marine Patrol, game wardens, and if you don't have prior police experience, everyone comes together and goes through 18 weeks of training. So John Rogers is the director of that. And then after you graduate from that academy, you go to your specific academy. So there's State Police Academy, there's a Game Warden Academy, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, if you're just Joe Portland police officer, there's nothing wrong with that, you would go right off and onto the street. So from talking to Catherine, I think we agreed that it's best to start at the very bottom, the basic school. They've got more time. 18 weeks, they're looking for time to fill a lot of times, where our 8-week to 9-week program is to start at 04 in the morning, and they don't get done until midnight, and it's bang, bang, bang. So
we talked, and we know from various research studies that the 3 places older people go for advice, information, health assistance with transportation alternatives are their families, their doctors, and public safety officers. Those are the people they listen to. And I had been meaning for years to connect with the police academies and figure out if there was some way to get some information in the curriculum. And when this happened, and Doug and I talked, and I found out there was nothing, I contacted, he gave me all the contacts. You know how hard it is to get your contacts, who you call, who you talk to, and not just, call the 800 number or whatever. Anyway, they listened to me, and they want to be emailed when all the new materials come out from National Highway Traffic Safety. They're going to evaluate whether or not it goes into the basic academy curricula or whether it's part of the continuing education. They said they'll look at materials and see they have to balance you know, they have a certain amount of classroom hours.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because every year we have certain in-house training we have to do. And we used to all do it. We always used to go up to the academy, pull people off the road, and we'd meet for like 2 days, and they'd have a speaker and this and that. Now it's all done online. It's all done through websites. And a lot of the smaller things like this year, we've got outlaw biker gangs is one of our things. We have a big population of outlaw biker gangs here in Maine. How to deal with them, what to look for, what not. That probably be one of the, you know, the troopers that are on the road now, to put that in the in-service, you know, website. And that way, all the troopers, no matter if you've got 25 years or you've got 2 years on the road, you have to take it, you have to pass the written test, and it's all accounted for. You know, as soon as you send it, it goes right to your sergeant, and the sergeant sends it up to training. So, they know they can use it.
So what we'll do here is we'll keep track of what's happening in NITSA. We'll report back to you on how we're doing here in Maine, but we'll make all the information available to you for your communities and your states. So you'll be completely in the loop of those new materials when they come out. The other thing that Doug and I talked about was when an older person is pulled over by the state police or municipal police, what do you do with that older driver in addition to, if it's necessary, you know, have them evaluated medically or take their license away? What information do you have about alternative transportation for older people? Same answer, there's nothing out there. So, you know, shame on me, right? 17 and a half years in the Portland area, public safety has nothing in their hands about ITN. So I called the Lieutenant Colonel in charge of, I'm not sure what, but he
He's
called.
just number 2 in our department.
Okay, anyway, I just Doug representing, I have to. Okay. He was very nice, and he returned my call within an hour, and he'd already been all over our website. And he said, I had to make sure you're a 501c3. You are. Now, you know, one of the benefits of being a 501c3, everybody knows you're out there for the common good, right? And he said, what can I do for you? And I said, well, I'm just wondering if it would be permitted. And I talked to Bob Duffy, and Portland is going to do this. Would we be allowed to give each state trooper in the ITN service area information about ITN and one free membership a year to give away to an older driver of their choice? He said, I think that's a fabulous idea. I would like to do that. I just have to check with the Attorney General, make sure we can give these away, and I'll get back to you, and if we can, we'll do it. So, you know, so now we're talking public safety, but we're also talking marketing, which is how do you get the word out when you have $0 to pay for getting the word out? I mean, we have $0, we know that. And so if the state, so this is education for public safety. This is offering alternatives to people. This is getting our name out there. So
We did have it out there last week. There was an article in the paper.
yeah. Oh, did they? I didn't see that.
There was a separate article. Well, it was the article about me, and then there was the article about ITN.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
And you talked about Sarah.
Oh, thanks. Okay. So anyway, yeah.
Well, I just wanted, I don't know if anyone else has made any connections, but coincidentally, a couple of days before coming here, I was looking for ways to get the word out to our communities. I'm in the Detroit metropolitan area, and we haven't launched rides yet. And I saw that one of our cities that is in our drive area had, the police department had an adopt a senior program. So I thought, oh, hey, this looks good, you know, and I ended up talking to the chief of police. They put me through to the chief of police and explained, you know, who we were and what we wanted to do. And I said, you know, it never really struck me till I'm just making this connection. When you pull over someone and you realize that they shouldn't really be behind the wheel, like, is there any way that you can start distributing our alternative suggestion, you know? And he says, it's like what you said, if you're a nonprofit organization and this makes sense to us, I don't see any reason why. So I dropped off a bunch of brochures, including the volunteer opportunity there. And then I have a friend who's a district court judge. And I called her and I said, okay, you know, you're taking away people's licenses or ticketing them or doing whatever. That's a great idea. And she said, bring it over. We constantly give away information to, you know, and it was like, oh my goodness, just opened up a whole someone's aging and wants to go down to the theater, and I respect that they should have that dignity to do what they want to do, you know. But I mean, these are people who are so desperate. They maybe don't have family to drive them or friends. They're out there on the roads. And to me, that's like the heart of what we need to get to. That's the...
Yeah, I think it is. That's a great idea to connect with the judicial system. So hard, you know, here I'm thinking of public safety. I didn't think it. It's hard to think of it all. You know, it's hard to make all the connections, even if it's all you do. There was some other, yes.
I live in Florida, and I'm curious how much interchange there is about training capabilities between state of Maine police and police in other states. Not as much as you'd like to have.
Well, we have, I have the ability, in New England, we have what's called NESPAC, New England State Police Compacted Consolidation Agreement, which is basically Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Mass, Connecticut, one more, Rhode Island. Whenever it hits the fan, the colonel can pick up the phone, call another colonel, the colonel calls the commissioner, the colonel calls the governor, the two governors speak, and you've got a force of however many troopers you want to come and help you out. On a smaller scale, being a member of the tactical team of the SWAT team, we go and train with all those states. So we're all on the same page doing what we do, because we've actually had more incidents where we've called other state troopers in from around New England to come help us. And we all want to be on the same page with something. As far as just Doug Croft, our state trooper 295, no. I don't know, you know, it's something as small as, do I know if Mass State Police do passenger side approaches? Don't know. You know, how do they handle their accidents? Don't know. I know California Highway Patrol has a 6-page form for a fender bender accident. Mine's done in 15 minutes. There is no, I mean, there is connections. The command staff, you know, my light colonel, when they go out of state, when they go to the federal, the FBI Academy, they're talking, they're sharing. But whether it will be used back here in Maine, don't know.
Okay.
If that's answering your question.
It does, but either through the National Highway Traffic Safety Organization or some analogous group, there ought to be a way to spread the training far further and wider.
I think NHTSA's probably the place to go for dissemination. But for something to be a federal level, you know, I'm no lawyer. We got lawyers here, but I think you need interstate commerce or federal funding or some justification. Otherwise, it's a state's issue. That's why insurance, 50 different sets of rules. You know, state police, 50 different sets of rules. But I'm just guessing here. Pull over a truck for speeding, and it's a certain kind of truck. Interstate commerce, boom, the feds are involved. So is that right? Yeah. So there has to be some justification for the federal government to become involved. Or, you know, the federal government often becomes involved by giving money in front of states. We'll give you this money if you do something.
Yep.
So one other thing I wanted to mention, and any questions anybody has, of course, when Doug told me that his folks were here, they moved here from New York, and that his dad had some health issues and wasn't driving anymore. So, does anybody want to guess what I did?
Here's a form.
Well, actually what I did is I've been volunteering for years. I got tons of credits, and I give them away all the time. And I asked him if he would permit me to give his parents a membership so that his dad could have transportation and his mom wouldn't feel isolated. And he graciously accepted. So I suggest to you that with your credits, you can do wonderful good in the community. And you're not taking away from your affiliate. You know, it's a funded gift because I drove all those miles and brought in all those dollars for IPN. So I think if you're driving or if your volunteers are earning credits and you want to make gifts in the community, you can do that, and it feels good. Actually, you know, because so many years here, people come to me with their parents' problems all the time.
convince my mom either. I mean,
Oh,
the
really?
banquet they're having in November. I'm like, yeah, they're gonna pick you up. She's like, what? They're gonna send a car and pick you up. No. It's just that letting go. That is the hardest
It's the
part.
last bastion of independence.
Yeah.
You take my car and you take my life.
Yeah. Or I'll call my son, come pick me up in the cruiser. And take me
Volunteer driver.
Put it on a safe gas story.
But it's actually a perfect example. You can't call your son, who's a state policeman, and say, I've got a doctor's appointment today. Can you take off work?
Well, my next answer would be, where is it? I mean, I'm allowed to go. And I've got an unmarked car, so it's pretty easy to blend in with everyone. But, yeah, I would. I mean, if my parents were in Scarborough, lived 5 minutes from me, and said, hey, can you take me up? I'm not feeling good today, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, jump in the car, let's go. If something happens, Mom, we gotta go take care of this accident.
Your doctor.
Yeah, Dr. But it really was not easy. We had to have about a half-hour conversation on, you're going to let these people drive it, you're going to see how it is, because I'm not always going to be there. When my father was taken to the hospital on a Monday in Portland, I was 2.5 hours away in Quebec. And Quebec is, go to Augusta, which is about 45 minutes from here, and then travel an hour and a half northwest. That is the center of Maine, the geographical center of Maine. I was out in the woods for a week-long training, and I get a text message at 6 o'clock in the night at night. We were done training for the day, but of course I had a couple adult beverages. Didn't want to drive home, and here I am 2.5 hours away. And thank God I had my friend sit with my mom and my dad till 1:30 in the morning. So I can't always be there for them because this job requires a lot of time, a lot of being away from your families.
I think sometimes we forget that transition in time. You're sitting with your mother for half an hour and insisting that she take this ride next month. When I signed my mother-in-law up, it took a year before she dialed that number next to her phone and actually did it. So it does take 3 months sometimes. I think that's the average of what we find. Sometimes longer, but it's not just always an instant fix either.
This was just for the one night. I mean, this is not,
Right.
not a half hour. Just to, give up your keys and let them pick you up. I don't know how I'm going to deal with telling my mom, no, you both can't drive. Yes, sir.
If I were to, when I go back and start tapping into the police departments and things like that, to help department with it, what would you recommend for us? That when I go there, what do I say and things like that to grab the attention from them and they take it.
I would find out. I mean, Catherine, I don't know, but I'm pretty lucky that I knew the names, knew the contact numbers of the people who to talk to in that department. Start at the top. Whether you start at the mayor of your city, or if there's a commissioner of public safety, or just go right to the chief. Talk to them. They can always divert you to the next person, because we all know most stuff rolls downhill. And talk to them. Show them the video. Show them and tell them. This was an 88-year-old man. It's on YouTube, going the wrong way. And how often do you do this? How long, what are your statistics? In 12 years, I've dealt with, I think I counted out about 7 wrong-way drivers. An older woman was driving a construction zone last year. I cut her off, she never hit me. I've dealt with a drunk driver that was hammered, drove from Portland, almost went head-on with a Portland cruiser, through those same S-curves, going to Tukey's Bridge. He made it to Yarmouth, which is 8 miles, without hitting anyone. Got spike-mounted by Yarmouth PD, and I'm coming from Brunswick, which is north of there. It all of a sudden I see these white lights at me, and I stop, and he just missed it, and they fired 10 feet. And then the worst one was a double fatality. We're off in the crash in those same S-curves, and all of a sudden, without any warning, I see a car pulling by me on the other side of the Jersey barrier. We take off, race after it, almost catch up to it, and all of a sudden you see. Make the flip the right way. He passed 23 cars, I think it was, before he finally came on to this retired, I think he was either the chancellor or president of a university in Vermont. Just retired, started his first day working at LLB.
Was the driver drunk?
Nope, he was off his medications. Older man, probably, senior man, probably in his 65, 60, mid-60s. Thought he was on a lot of meds. It's really not difficult. It's not. No, we're talking about different ways to sign those roads. There are red and white signs, kind of like a stop sign, says wrong way. But there are more expensive signs that are lit, that have a capability of detecting when a vehicle is coming at the sign the wrong way, and it lights up no matter if it's day or night, and it's going to light up. So to answer your question, try and get statistics, talk to the right people, see what training they have, because what's happening is, what training did you have to prepare for this? Zero. The only thing we do with elderly people in the Criminal Justice Academy or the State Police Academy is talk about crimes against elderly people. When are they being taken advantage of by their own kids? When are the people, make them aware of phone scams and not sending $1,000 to Djibouti, Africa, okay? Because of, they're going to get $50,000 in return and get scammed out. How to deal with gypsy pavers or people who want to do work on their homes. That's it. Nothing to do with the driver. It's except recognizing that this person shouldn't be driving. Or after an accident and the car's still drivable, you're not driving. We'll put you in the taxi, or a lot of times the workers that we deal with, tow trucks. I know the guys personally. I've used them so much on a first name basis. It helped me out at times with my own personal vehicle. Hey, take this person home. They want the car to go there. They'll pay for it. They got the cash on them. Stop by an ATM and just get them home.
What about the instances of, we see in Ohio all the time, that, not to put that in, but the missing adult, where an adult driver is behind the wheel. We had one just recently, a guy was reported missing by his wife at 4 o'clock in the morning, I think. He hadn't driven for 2 years. He had some issues, medical issues, but was feeling better, got the keys, got in the car, and they found him. He was dead, but they found him up in Michigan. He apparently got on the highway and started to drive. How do you...
We get Amber Alerts. We get people who have left their homes, who have, and most of them just walk away. They'll walk off into the woods or go hiking and get lost. Then we're calling the game wardens, and then they're going to do their thing, like you see on Northwoods Law. You haven't seen that one yet. Searching for elderly walkers who may have gotten lost. When I first came out, we had someone who walked away from their home, and it was freezing out. We ended up finding it, but we put out what we call a File 6. It's a teletype that goes to every police department in the state, including federal, and it's be on the lookout for. But in my 12 years, I've never had anyone kind of be on the lookout for so-and-so. He got in his car, he shouldn't have been in his car, and he just took off. Usually, or suicidal, or the Amber Alerts for the children. Never really heard of anyone being elderly and got his car and took off.
They call them silver alerts.
So,
We have a
Silver alerts. The Alzheimer's Association does a lot of work with it because of the wandering, but they also wander off in their cars.
maybe people here may not know that they can do that too.
Report them missing that way?
Yeah, my husband shouldn't be driving. He took off in the car.
Yeah.
Call your police department. I really don't think I've ever heard of it.
Well, all right. I'll give you some information.
I just wondered if either or both of you
movement afoot in a number of states to try to do driver recertification after a certain age.
That's a hot topic right now. That is,
Really?
yeah, it has been. Since all this has gone down, since my incident, there was a wrong-way driver in Massachusetts, and the Massachusetts people, the news reporter goes, too bad Trooper Cropper wasn't there. So, of course, I got crapped for that from my co-worker. Let's see, there was how old was he in California? 100-year-old backing over all those kids. We had, just 2 weeks ago, an 84-year-old woman driving down India Street in Portland. And India Street is just a straight road, going downhill, and then all of a sudden, you're going through a fence, and she's going off into the water. Luckily, it was low tide, and there was also a cruise ship right next to her, I believe. Civilians, about 6 civilians jumped into the water. They had to go down pretty deep into it because it was low tide. The drop-off was pretty good.
Are we submerged?
Yeah, it got submerged into the mud and into some water. Even city police were all like,
Was it California where that parking lot, shopping mall accident was?
yeah.
There was one like that, too.
It's in the press a lot. I mean, it's been national. It's been on Fox and it's been everywhere. I mean, just, should we be? And actually, there's a 2-part article in the newspaper, the Sun Journal, talking about baby boomers are coming around. What are we doing for recertification of, checking for recertification? Can we do it? What should we be doing to check? I mean, right now it's like, okay, are you suspended? Nope. Okay, let's check your eyes. Okay. And you got your license.
Oh, so by,
Oh, and do you have insurance?
by recertification, you mean retesting?
I think that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Retesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know.
It's on top.
I just wondered, because I think that, we could maybe tie it to federal highway dollars the same way we did when we wanted to enforce lower speed limits. That, until the state has a recertification process in place, then you don't get your federal highway dollar.
Well, it's a tough subject for a number of reasons. There's some powerful lobbies in Washington